welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty interesting show for you here today. We're going to talk some Nikola Jokic, and is he really what they're saying he is? Not really sure, but we'll find out. Um, Before we get to that, though, you know what time it is. If you haven't already and you're here on YouTube, please go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you can be made aware whenever new content drops on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, please make sure you go ahead, go to your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, do a little search. We should come right up. Please give us that 5-star review if you enjoy the content. Make sure you share the pod with other people you know looking for a different voice in the sports media. You know what happens when you do that. We find more sports fans find us. Now, let's get right to it. Okay, so Nikola Jokic, unless you live under a rock or you're not a basketball fan, of course, Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets are on the right on the brink of winning an NBA championship tonight, their first ever NBA championship. Matter of fact, their first professional basketball championship. Last time they played for one was, I believe, 1976 when the New York Nets, led by Dr. J. Julius Erving, beat them for the championship, and that was ABA. But this is the first time the Nuggets are have even played in the NBA Finals and are on the verge of winning it all. So the Nuggets have two star players, Nikola Jokic, their all-world center, and of course their shooting guard Jamal Murray, who is playing lights out as well. But this episode, we're going to talk about Nikola Jokic. Why are we going to talk about Nikola Jokic? Because everyone else is talking about Nikola Jokic. Now, the guy is playing tremendous basketball here in this playoff run. He's not defending, but he won the MVP 2 of the 3 previous seasons, 2 back-to-back, and came in second in the voting for it this year. And just an outstanding player overall in the modern NBA. And he's doing things that we rarely, if ever, have seen before from a center in terms of leading the offense, leading the break, leading the team in assists, basically playing a point center role. We've seen point guards, we've seen point forwards. Now he's playing a point center role. And the way he plays the center position in the modern NBA is really throwing off defenses. And so he's putting up numbers that we traditionally don't see. And he's got his team on the brink of winning a championship. Now, for this playoff run, he's averaging 30 points a game, 9.8 assists, and 13.3 rebounds. All-time great numbers. And, you know, a great game tonight, and he probably can average a triple-double through the entire playoff run. And I'm really trying to think if there's anyone who's ever averaged a triple-double for an entire playoff run resulting in a championship, and I don't think so. And the crazy part about it is this is not like, you know, a 10-10-10 triple-double. And no disrespect to Jason Kidd, but this is not a low-scoring one like he was the master of. And Jokic is shooting 54% from the field, 46% from 3, and 80% from the stripe, which is crazy splits, right? So Jokic is doing his thing. And with that, we're hearing all types of commentary from the sports media pundits, from the commentators. And as usual, we are finding ourselves, not me, but many people finding themselves prisoner of the moment. And that's what I kind of don't like about the modern sports media. Everything that happens now is the greatest thing that's ever happened, to the point of disrespecting the past, right? And why do I say that in the case of Jokic? I say that in the case of Jokic because now we're hearing people arguing, oh, if he wins this championship, will he be a top 15 player all time? What? Come on, man. He's got a long way to go before that. Can we let it breathe a little bit? If he wins this championship, will he be a top 10 center all time? What? Come on now. He's got some time. Can we let it breathe? Now, that last question, will he be a top 10 center all time, is not totally ridiculous on his face, especially seeing the numbers that he's putting up. But I think the problem there is when you look at the era that he plays in and the lack of, you know, elite dominant centers in the modern game, well, that to me takes away, because competition has to matter, right? You've heard me say that before. If you watch the show, competition has to matter. And this is where we get into the issue of not just what he's doing, but who he's doing it against. How is he doing it, right? So as I mentioned, he's averaging 9.8 assists and 13.3 rebounds through this playoff run, which is actually absolutely nuts, right? And if he goes ahead and leads them to the championship tonight, well, then that will be, you know, just one of the all-time great playoff runs. And I get it. But now we got to look and see. First of all, right, Jokic this is interesting because I mentioned earlier that he plays kind of like a point center role. So the question now is, okay, we know that at 7-1, he can pass over the top, but why are opposing coaches allowing Jokic to just bring the ball up the court without letting his guards apply some pressure. There's no reason that you shouldn't at least throw it in there to let a guard apply some pressure, so that one of two things happens. He turns it over because he's 7'1", trying to dribble up against a guard. A guard should be able to take that from him. But then defense in the modern league is not what it used to be. But anyway, theoretically, a guard should be able to take that from him if he's trying to dribble it up. And second, if he has to turn around to back that guard down, then that takes more time. So what do? Either he turns it over via the 8-second rule, or he turns it over via getting stripped by the guard, or you get it out of his hands. Why is that not happening more? And at that point, whoever the guard is can scramble back and get to their original defensive assignment. But hey, I'm not an NBA coach. I'm just sitting here talking about it, right? So there's that. So you wonder, why are things like that not happening? And then I say, okay, well, the way Jokic can shoot the ball in terms of shooting a three, and in the way he can pass over the top in terms of assisting the basketball, makes him more dangerous in the half-court offense. True indeed. But now, here's the thing. Jokic is able to do that because he's not physically being punished on the other end and forced to defend, right? Now, notice, he doesn't play so well when he plays against Embiid. Why? Because Embiid forces him to defend. And when you have to use energy on defense, all that stuff, all that miraculous stuff that you're doing on offense, more often than not is going to suffer, right? We've seen this through many years with LeBron James taking a lot of time off on defense because he's quote unquote asked to do so much on offense, right? But anyway, this isn't about LeBron, but that's the general premise. So yes, Jokic right now, the way he's playing looks incredible and it looks great. And for this era, it is. But now you get to the question of if Jokic wins this championship, is he going to be top 10 all time? And now here's my problem, right? Now, again, you could tell me, Bruce, you're trapped in the 80s and the 90s in that era of basketball. And again, that's the era that formed me. That's the era I came up watching, the era that I know best, and the era that I believe is the best, right? So that's arguably, probably inarguably, the best big man era of all time, right? That stretch between 1984 and maybe 1998 or 2000. Best big man era of all time, right? So now you see what Jokic is doing. Now the question is he doing this if he plays back then? Now, of course, we'll never actually know because he can't play back then, and it's not his fault. He can only play against the competition he's got. But that's where you have to say, okay, he can only play against the competition that he's got today, but you can't be making these ridiculous comments. And the reason I say that, does he ever have to go against an Olajuwon? Does he ever have to go against a Mutombo? Does he ever have to bang with an Alonzo Mourning, a Patrick Ewing, a David Robinson? Are we getting the point here? Even an old Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a Mark Eaton, another terror on defense. So you got all these types of guys that you would have to deal with at the center position that Jokic doesn't have to, which allows him to have the energy offensively to be able to run the break and to be able to lead the offense and all of that. Imagine if he had to try to defend all those guys. And on top of that, and yes, we know Jokic is skilled. His footwork is outstanding. He has legitimate post moves, but guess what? His lack of athleticism, his total lack of athleticism, you have a problem, because if you're trying that stuff against your Olajuwons and your Mutombos and all those guys I mentioned, those guys are going to be putting your shots back in your face, right? Even your up and unders and your fakes and all that. He's not Kevin McHale. He's not Olajuwon. He's not doing that to those guys, right? These are all-time great defenders we're talking about. So now these guys are putting the ball back in your face, and they're physically bodying you, and they're making you defend them on the other end. Do we really believe that Jokic is doing all the same stuff that he'd be doing today? I don't. Now, this is not me taking a shot at Jokic. More precisely, this is me taking a shot at the NBA sports media, right? Because we've got to stop all this prisoner of the moment. If it didn't happen yesterday, then it didn't happen stuff. Because there's a lot of stuff that happened in the past, and I'm not sure what it is about basketball that feels this need to denigrate the previous generations and the previous players in order to prop up this one. I think the people, the powers that be, they know that this generation of basketball, although they want to push the narrative that it's the best ever and the players are the most skilled, that's not really the case. It's not really the case. And that's why they've had to change the rules, right? And that's why they have to continually push narratives vocally, instead of you just seeing what guys are doing and understanding that what they're doing on itself is enough to stand on its own merit. But we can't do that. We always have to push the narrative. So anyway, Jokic, again, amazing player. Jokic, again, amazing playoff run. Jokic, again, proving that he's the best center in the world, especially if he closes it out and wins this championship, right? Now, when it comes down to it, we saw what Embiid did to him, and I personally believe that Embiid is better than him. But at the same time, in a one-on-one matchup, Embiid is better. But Embiid can't do the things that Jokic can do in terms of affecting victory for your team in more different ways. Now, that could be, again, I'm not going to get into it too tough about Embiid, but I think that Embiid is often lazy on offense and bails the defense out. That's a point for a show on another day. But when it comes down to it, Embiid can't do all the things that Jokic can do. So that's where the argument comes in. And you could say Jokic is better, even though I've been consistent about the fact that I believe Embiid has a better offensive skill set. Now, well, let me correct that. Not just a better offensive skill set, but a better scoring package. Let's say that, because there is more to offense than scoring. But with that said, Jokic is proving that he is outstanding, but let's pump the brakes on this top 10 center of all time thing. Let's pump the brakes on this top 15 player of all time thing. He's got a lot more to do before he gets there. And realistically, again, I like watching Jokic play. I think he's very sound. I think he's very solid. Realistically, at the center position, he's doing things for a sustained period of time that we haven't seen before. So all credit is due. But if we're putting this guy in the category with Kareem and Dream and Shaq and D-Rob and Ewing and Wilt and the great Bill Russell, like, come on, can we stop that? It's ridiculous. It's nonsensical. He's got a lot longer to go doing what he's doing before we can put him in that category. And again, the fact that he plays in a weak center era, one of the weakest center eras of all time, that has to mean something. Anyway, what I want to know from you is, do you believe that if Jokic wins his championship, that he will be a top 10 center of all time? Do you think that we're too much caught prisoner of the moment? Not me, but many people in the sports media, in terms of Jokic and what he's doing. And what's your general opinion on where Jokic is going to fall if he wins the championship tonight, or if he wins the championship, period? Leave those comments in the comment section. Can't wait to hear him. Can't wait to respond to him. I'll be back with you on the next episode, and I'm out. Peace.